Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lightning talk. Today, I'm going to be talking about augmented reality, a shift in UX paradigms. I'm Mauricio Avalos. I'm a product manager at Nolti. I've been working as a product manager for most of my career, so I have a lot of experience building products. And that is why today I wanted to talk about augmented reality. I really think that this technology will fundamentally change how we interact with the world, with other people, with our environment. So I wanted to talk about how we need to think when we start to develop augmented reality applications. So first I'm going to talk about what is augmented reality. Basically, augmented reality is an interactive experience that seeks to enhance real-world objects and scenes with computer-generated information, such as virtual objects or context-sensitive information. This is usually complemented with additional sensorial inputs such as sound, haptic feedback, or even smell. It seeks to enhance the world around us by providing us with interactive and engaging experiences that are not possible with other type of interfaces. AR allows us to either add virtual information to the environment or to completely mask our surroundings with different textures and structures. So currently, there are three types of categories of devices that are currently available on the market. There's really only one mainstream way to experience AR right now, which is through our mobile devices. So we can do this from our phones or from our tablets. This is thanks to the work Apple and Google have done by producing their different frameworks to allow developers to easily create AR experiences on mobile devices. So although AR is really not a new concept, it's been around for decades. It only took off about 3 years ago. You might remember the game called Pokemon Go. This is basically a game that allowed you to interact with Pokemon in the real world, and it was a really innovative experience and a really innovative way of using AR. So this is when it started getting mainstream attention, and businesses and other industries started to seeing ways of how to apply AR into their various fields. So basically, the limitations you have with a phone or a tablet is that you always need that device in your hand, and to experience the AR, the different AR capabilities of a product, you need to hold the screen in front of you. So basically, what it does is it uses both cameras on your phone to capture real world information, and then overlay virtual objects or information on top of the screen. It uses also various different elements of the phone's hardware, such as the GPS, the gyroscope, so that it can provide a more immersive experience when you're trying to create AR applications. Some ways to interact with the AR world through a phone is to present a UI on screen with familiar gestures and controls, such as pinch to zoom, double taps, tapping on an item that is active on the screen. Recently, Apple has started integrating into their development framework ways for users to track body movement, track facial features, This will further enhance the experience on mobile once it's publicly available in iOS 13. Companies like Unity have created their own frameworks that basically allow developers to create AR experiences both for any device that supports AR. No? So basically Android, iPhone, and some headsets too. Another category of devices, the next two categories basically are in research right now. Most of these products are available, but as development kits, and they're not really ready for mass use. So these fall into categories. One of them is wearable AR displays, which you might remember Google Glass that was released a few years ago, which basically what it did was provide a heads-up display that displayed various information around the world. One of the limitations this had is that you were not able to interact directly with the information presented around you. So it was just basically to help you out, maybe get to a new place by providing GPS directions directly through the display. It allowed you to browse certain messages that you received on your phone. It allowed you to make phone calls. But really, the AR experience was really limited. And this is when the next category of devices started appearing, which is, they are called mixed reality displays. So one example of this is HoloLens that is being developed by Microsoft. Another example is a company called Magic Leap. And what these headsets do is basically provide the same experience as a phone or a tablet, where you're able to interact with virtual objects, but they do this by displaying the information directly into your eye and making your brain think that you're seeing virtual objects in the real world. So these type of devices incorporate different types of gestures to interact with the virtual objects. You can use hand gestures. They also incorporate sensors that detect eye movement, and they can also detect other people and the way they move and interact with these virtual objects. So basically, these three types of experiencing AR are very different. Different considerations need to be made when creating interfaces for them and when for creating products. So right now I'm only gonna focus on phones and tablets, which is really the only way that you can experience AR right now. Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about building AR applications. So the first thing we need to ask ourselves is when it's a good idea to use AR. Like any new technology, there will be a lot of companies that will want to have an AR experience for their products or their services just because it's a new technology and they don't want to be left behind. But we do really need to consider, as software developers and product designers, when it's a good idea to implement it. And these are a few questions that I think are useful that you should ask yourself if AR is the best solution for a product or a problem. So first of all, what value can only AR provide to the experience? So can we solve this problem another way, like a traditional way with a mobile app, with maybe an interactive video or some other way? That's the first question we need to answer. Second is, will using AR make the user experience more complicated or easier than other implementations? So if AR is just going to stand in the way of what the user is going to be doing, it probably isn't a good idea to do it. To implement AR, it really has to provide some value. It really has to make things more immersive or easier to present to the user for us to consider building an AR experience. Also, what's the cost benefit of adding AR to your application? Since creating AR applications requires a lot of 3D modeling, this could increase greatly the cost of developing an AR application. So maybe sometimes it's not a good idea just because of budget. No, you probably can solve the same problem in a traditional way and spend a lot less money and provide a similar experience to the user. Also, what's your target user base? This is very important, as AR it's available in most mobile devices, but advanced AR functionalities are only available in recent models. This will obviously change in a few years, but right now we're limited to devices that are at least 2 or 3 years old, to provide the full AR mobile experience. So we also need to understand what is AR good at. This way we can easily know if building an AR experience is a good idea or not. So one of the things it's good at is showing information to your eyes only. Another thing is showing information that can be better understood in context. So for example, in the image on the right, this is a GPS application, and as you can see, labels are presented in the screen that basically show where various attractions are around the city. So this can make the user easily find a new restaurant, a hotel, or various attractions across the city. It's also very good to increase engagement, since you have to always be looking at your screen and interacting with it. It really drives engagement, so this can be really good for certain applications. It's also very good for collaboration. This can be either direct collaboration or remote collaboration. Another thing we have to take into account, especially as AR is relatively new technology, are the various limitations of both software and hardware. So right now, Apple and Android are not at the same level of capabilities regarding their frameworks, their development frameworks. So there will be some functionalities that you can develop in iOS, and others that you cannot. So you really have to know the limitations of each platform, so you can present a product that works as expected. So a few of the limitations right now are that there's a limited real-world object recognition. So the camera and the software can detect simple objects in everyday life, but there's still a long way to go for this technology to start recognizing various objects. This is very important because once this technology allows us to recognize multiple objects, the interactions with them and virtual objects will be more interesting and more engaging. Another problem is surface recognition. So only until recently, AR software and frameworks could only recognize horizontal surfaces. For iOS 13, Apple is starting to implement ways to recognize walls, and this will also expand the ways that you can interact with the world around you. Also, with some applications, you'll notice that when you place a virtual object in the real world, the object may start shifting around. This is because the technology is still not perfect, and there still needs to be more work done to recognize the different surfaces in the real world. Another limitation is that calculation of distances. So to provide an immersive experience, it's very important to show objects at various distances. No, so this considers obviously the size of the object and the plane where it's being shown. So right now there's a lot of limitations in that regard. Also the quality of the rendered objects. Right now the quality of the images that you're allowed to show is really poor, considering what you can do on mobile devices, on traditional applications. So that's one of the other limitations. Like I mentioned, hardware limitations. Not all of the phones and tablets can run all of the different AR capabilities. Also creativity. Since this is a new technology, we still are not sure how to implement interfaces and to get the best out of an AR experiences. Right now we are trying to migrate known experiences to the AR world, and most of the interactions and how we implement it don't translate well from a mobile application to an AR application. This obviously will change with time. You may remember that mobile applications started similar, where developers just tried to take desktop experiences and cram them into a tiny screen. And well, as time went by, the design of mobile applications started to get better, no? And finally, ergonomics. So since we're talking about mobile AR, one of the biggest limitations is that the phone has always to be on your hand. So the way you interact with the virtual world is limited by this, and you have to take it into account when designing applications. So these are some of the user experience considerations that I found useful when developing an AR application. So first of all, you need to consider the environment. As opposed to a mobile application where the place where everything happens is on the screen, the environment, the real world in an AR application is your canvas. So you have to take into account where the user is going to be using your application. Is it going to be inside a house? Is it going to be on the street, in a park? All of these you have to keep in mind so that you can show the appropriate UI and information in this context. This obviously has an effect of where you're going to be placing the UI, the types of colors you're going to be using, the size of the fonts, and all of that is going to be considered when you think about your environment. The second one is the interactions the users will have with the virtual world. So you have to take into account what type of objects the user will interact with. Will it be 3D models? Will it be animated media? Will it be markers that you place around the world? And also how will the user interact with them? Will they be able to touch them with their hand? Will they be able to interact with them through their phone screen, through their voice? So there are various methods of interacting with these objects that you have to keep in mind when developing AR applications. Also, you have to keep in mind how these virtual objects will interact with the real world. If you place an object, do you need it to be on a flat surface? If it falls from that surface, will it break, for example? So all of that you need to take into consideration. Another very important thing is adding visual and audio cues. So as you can see on the image on the right, this is a Google Maps version of an AR version of Google Maps. It was released yesterday, I think. And so basically you can see that they're using visual cues to direct the user to where the virtual objects are. Since the user not able to see these objects, you need to be really clear on how they're going to be able to interact with them. This can be done by highlighting the different objects, by placing audio cues or visual cues as it's shown in the image. Also, it's very important when you design 3D models to do realistic object modeling. So it's very important to consider sizing. What size is the object going to have so that it looks real and immersive when you place it in the real world. You need to use shadows to make it look more real. You need to consider the object's behavior in the real world. Also, it's very important to keep things simple, as this is a new technology and a new experience for users. You can't start innovating right away. You need to present known mobile screen gestures to the user and familiar UI elements that will allow them to immerse themselves more easily into the experience. You need to know how and when to innovate. It's recommended that with new technologies like this, you innovate slowly so that your user starts becoming accustomed to this new technology. Also, it's very important to have an onboarding process that makes it really clear on how you're going to be interacting with the application and with the real world. So you need to include examples of the various gestures and UI controls that are going to be used, as well as the various gestures that are going to allow you to control the virtual world and enhance the AR experience. Okay, so now I'm gonna show a few examples of AR applications. First, I'm going to talk about what industries will benefit from AR. So right now, basically any industry has the potential of implementing AR in some way or another, but these are the industries that have innovated the most and that have moved at a faster pace. So the first one is gaming. Like I mentioned, it all started with Pokemon Go. After that, a lot of companies started creating games with AR experiences. It really was a natural evolution of games, as the games presented in AR allow users to interact more with the content and make it more engaging and fun. Another space that started innovating a lot with this is retail and e-commerce. As you may know, Amazon and IKEA started with this by providing applications that allowed users to put furniture in their own homes and to have an idea of how this furniture would look. They're also now experimenting with various textures. So at some point you'll be able to change, for example, the color of your wall, the tiling on your floor, and you will be able to explore your house with these new textures and see how the house looks before taking a decision of maybe removing your floor. No. Another important industry that's embracing AR is architecture and landscaping. So as you may know, architects use a lot of 3D models to present their projects, and they usually build these models physically and take them around with them to show them to clients, to potential investors. So with AR, they now are able to produce 3D models and present them anywhere they are. It also enhances the experience because users can interact with that content, so they can. I'll show a demo right now that will show what I mean more clearly with that. Another space is manufacturing processes. So this is basically to show, like in the image on the right, when you're working with machines or assembly lines, AR helps users see information that they could only get before through manuals or through experience. So it's really helpful to for employees like to correct problems, to fix certain problems without really having a lot of expertise on the area. No, with all the different contextual information that can be shown, it really helps them do their job a lot better and faster. Education is also an industry that's benefiting from AR. Since AR by nature is more engaging, it allows kids or students to interact with their content in ways that wasn't possible before. And finally, remote support applications. So this is also an industry that's really benefiting from AR. It basically allows an expert that is not currently on site to guide someone else um, to solve a problem. No, for example, if you need to fix something from your car, you can then receive remote help from an expert, and he can highlight areas of the screen or of the picture that you need to see, that you need to replace, and that's been very helpful at the moment. So this is an application for iOS called iEscape. It basically allows you to create a garden landscape. It shows a wide variety of plants and furniture or stuff like ponds or fountains, and it allows you to design your landscape and see how it looks before you do anything on real life. So this is very handy. If you are a landscaper, this allows you to show the client what your plans are before actually constructing anything. And as you can see, it's a very easy experience and a very immersive experience. This is the other example I wanted to talk about. This is the architectural example. So this is a demo that basically shows a 3D model of a building and places it right in the construction lot. So this allows architects and customers to know exactly how a building will look in context. As you can see, sizing in AR is really important. It really showcases the whole size of the building, and in this case it allows you to explore the building as if you were inside. So this allows for unique interactions and unique ways of showing your projects to your clients. It's very interesting to see that you can see through windows, through doors, and it really gives you an idea of how it would be to live inside this space. This is another example. This is Minecraft. This is a very popular game in current gaming platforms. This is their AR version of the game. So as you can see, they are building a virtual world on the surface, and they can actually export that model and make it full size. And then with this, users can now interact with the virtual world. So with current advancements, you can place yourself in that world and interact with it, as you can see from that demo. And finally, this is a demo for a company called Caterpillar, which basically uses AR to show important information of the machines, like model numbers, part numbers, and it also allows you to provide maintenance to the machines easily. So as you can see in that example, it's telling the user that the air filter needs to be replaced, and with the AR experience, anyone can do it without any previous knowledge of how to do it. So this basically presents contextual information in the workplace, and it allows users to be more efficient at their work and to do it better. So, as conclusions, well, it's very important that you think about how AR can add value to existing products and processes. Like I said, you don't need to offer AR to your clients just because it's new and because everyone's doing it. It's very important to think on how it's going to be used and how users are going to enhance their experience with it. Um, Also, it's very important to stay up to date. Like I said, as it's a new technology, it's evolving quickly. Every year, there are new enhancements made to the different development kits provided by Apple and Android. So it's very important to understand the limitations and the capabilities of each new release. Um, it's also very important to keep the UI familiar. While people start to getting accustomed to these type of experiences, you need to make it as easy as possible for users to interact with these new types of experiences. And the most important one, I think, is to be creative and think outside the box when it comes to designing AR experiences. You can no longer think the traditional way of how you're going to represent information on a screen. Like I mentioned, right now the world is your canvas. That's where you need to present the experience. So that opens a lot of possibilities, but it also opens a lot of complications. So you really need to think about outside the box on how you're going to be implementing these type of experiences to provide the best use case to your users. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. So Gerardo asks, how expensive is it to maintain these types of technologies in terms of data usage and security? So in terms of data usage, if you, I'm not sure if you mean that if these type of experiences consume a lot of data, they really work the same way as native applications. So all objects and all of the information is stored on the device, and it's only triggered depending on context. So this could be a GPS location, it could be that time of day, for example, or a specific weather condition. So it really doesn't. It's not more cost intensive regarding data usage. In terms of security, in that way, it also works as a regular application. So Dwayne asks, other than gaming, which industries are the most advanced in AR? Yes, retail is one of the industries that are really embracing AR. Like I mentioned, to provide users with a way of showcasing items before buying them. So anything that sells furniture, even clothes, with the new functionality that allows you to map a user's body, you will be able to put virtual clothes on top of someone and see how they look on them before purchasing anything. Also, like I mentioned, the support industry is really making a lot of progress in this space, where you basically can collaborate with other people and guide them around fixing certain items or carrying out certain tasks. Herman asks, is any mixed reality device ready for mass market? No. All of the mixed reality headsets are still in their infancy. They still have a lot of problems. One of them is the field of view. So, for example, if there's a really large virtual object in front of you, you cannot see all of it. You need to move your head around to be able to view it all. No, it's not like um, it doesn't work like your eyesight. So this is something they're currently working on right now. Microsoft released a new version of their HoloLens, which increased the field of view from 30 degrees to 70 degrees. So this is making it a lot more immersive. Also, there are a lot of advancements that need to be made in tracking technology, so on how to correctly place virtual items in the landscape. This is a very complicated problem, especially when there are objects in the way. This technology needs to be able to understand if there's, for example, a person in front of the virtual object, so that it hides the object as you would expect in real life. Because right now, if people pass in front of a virtual object, the object just displays on top of them. So these are things that are currently being fixed. And yeah, I believe that we're still a ways off until mixed reality headsets are actually a consumer ready device. Oscar asks, do you think developers need to get some 3D modeling skills in order to be able to develop AR applications, or it needs a professional 3D modeler to do the job? Okay, so currently with Apple, they provide a very large library of virtual objects that you can use. So and you can modify them easily. They do this with AR designer, I believe that's the name of the framework. And but yeah, basically you need someone that is capable of producing 3D models, and that can be various ways. No, that can be through software, making them from scratch, or through photographing techniques where you basically take multiple photographs of the object and then map it into a virtual object. But yeah, basically, augmented reality needs everyone in a software team to radically change the way they do things. I like to compare AR to gaming. I think the gaming industry and developers that know how to develop games have an advantage when it comes to creating AR experiences, as gaming requires a lot of 3D models and a lot of user interaction with those objects. No, so there definitely needs to be new skill sets learned by developers, by designers, by testers, by product managers, even business owners. It's very important for them to know the capabilities of AR so that they can know what to offer to their customers. Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you next week for the next lightning talk.